All right, welcome. Welcome to another edition of ranking the top 10 songs today. So we decided to dig into none other than the Bloody Who, and bringing us along here to help me do this today. Gave him a ring on the phone all the way to from New York City. There he is, Mr. Davey Cretin. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, Joey. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, so this is going to be kind of like our Styx one where we picked our top 10 Styx songs. But I thought this episode for me was harder than the top 10 Styx songs. So why don't you give us a rundown on your take on everything here?
Well, unfortunately, with The Who, they have so many great songs from basically all the eras, but I'm burned down on a lot of the hits because down here in the city, Manhattan, New York City classic rock radio overplayed so many of the hits. I just don't need to hear those songs again. They're great songs. I don't want to take away anything from them, but a lot of them didn't make my list just because I'm bored with them. So I went for a lot of the deeper cuts and tracks that used to be played on the radio that have now been relegated to the dustbin of time, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah, that's the problem with radio today. It's totally totally a whole different bird out there compared to what it used to be,
It's
and
homogenized. They play very few songs from most classic bands.
yeah, it's like the radio station's archives have shrunk, unfortunately.
Exactly.
But we're here to shed some light on some songs that probably people will be maybe they never heard it, or maybe they haven't heard it in a long time, or maybe they just plain and simple forgot the song. So this is something that a true Who fan I hope will appreciate, and I hope that they will comment and give us listings of what songs they enjoy, because I think as time goes on, you do get sick of hearing the same songs when a band has such a vast catalog. It's one thing to overplay certain songs, but it's another to totally ignore 75% of their catalog when they had so many songs that had so much airplay, and it's just doesn't make sense. But let's dig in.
Okay.
What you
Before I
got?
start with my
Hmm.
number 10, I
Hmm.
just want to say the two things that I definitely like best about The Who. Pete Townshend's lyrics. As a songwriter, he's one of my favorite lyricists, and I just think he's an amazing songwriter. And John Entwistle's bass. It's so big
Mm.
and beefy. The ox, he plays a mean ass bass, or played, unfortunately, a mean ass bass. But I love John Entwistle as a bassist. So starting out, my number 10 is from 1981, the Face Dancers album, Daily Records. And the way Townsend writes all the lyrical couplets to the song, I think is amazing. Used to get played on the radio, hasn't been played on the radio in probably close to 40 years, unfortunately. And I don't care what the critics say about the late 70s and the early 80s Who releases, I think they're excellent. So at number 10, Daily Records.
Wow. Yeah, I never would have imagined. I'm not too familiar totally with that album as much as I probably should be. It didn't get as many great reviews, and sadly, I think radio up here by us, the only song that we really ever heard on the radio was maybe, of course, the hit "You Better You Bet," which was big, and that still
Mhm.
is. And the only other one that we usually heard off that album was "Another Tricky Day," "Once in a Blue Moon." So other than that, this album has been totally ignored by radio, over
Yes.
the years.
But in Manhattan, WPLJ at the time, 95.5, and WNEW 1027, and they're still around. And even probably WAPP, the Apple, I think they were 103.1. They used to play a lot more deep tracks. And
Hmm.
even before they went new wave, WDRE, LIR, before they went into the college radio new wave, they used to play a lot of rock songs and they played a lot of deep tracks. I probably heard 4 or 5 songs from that album, from Face Dancers, on the radio. And it was the first album, unfortunately, without Keith Moon. He had passed away in 78, 79. So this was the first album with Kenny Jones on the drums.
Correct.
And musically, it's just a great song. And also the great keyboard work on the album of Rabbit Bundrick, who added a lot of stuff to those early 82 albums. I'm sorry. I'll let you do yours.
No, that's fine. That's interesting notes there. All right. Um, so mine is a song that never really appeared on a regular studio release. And we're digging deep into the old Lifehouse sessions here for none other than Pure and Easy for my number 10. Um, yeah, I mean, obviously it was on Odds and Sods, which is probably one of the greatest compilations of songs that didn't really appear on a main album, for a band, or sometimes they have alternate versions of certain songs. But yeah, that album is definitely definitely something you want if you're a Who fan, because it has a lot of deep cuts on there and a lot of good songs that you might not be familiar with just because they never appeared on a regular Who release. But Pure and Easy, they ended up putting it on the Who's Next, the deluxe edition, back when they remastered them in the mid '90s there, and that's when I discovered the song. And Yeah, it's just one of those songs that really stands out. I really enjoyed, for me to make a top 10 with all the other songs they had in their catalog that were more accessible. It goes to show you how good this song really is, and it's definitely one of those songs that never really got its just due. But it was part of that Lifehouse project that was aborted when they finished off Who's Next. That was originally what it was supposed to be, was the Lifehouse project, but the story behind that's another episode, and then some if you want to get into the details on all that. So yeah, so number 10 is Pure and Easy. So that's what I got for my number 10.
I wonder if we're going to hear more about that later. I don't know. At any rate, also to add to your number 10 choice, they have another great collection of like B-sides of singles and A-sides of singles, different mixes, versions. Meaty Beaty Big and Bouncy is another really good collection. So that's another one for Who fans to find on CD or vinyl. Probably easy to find it on vinyl nowadays. Moving on to my number 9 from 1982, the It's Hard album, a
Mhm.
song that used to get airplay on New York City rock radio, Dangerous. And I wrote about this song, yet another deep dive off the cliff of obscure Who cuts, melodic with a bit of menace. You got to remember that Roger Daltrey, he was like a bare knuckle brawler when he was a kid. He would get into a lot of fights, and I'm sure he and Pete even got into a bunch of fist fights over the years, or at least arguments, because they were always at each other's throats regarding music. And I just really think Dangerous is a good unknown Who song. And again, the keyboard work of probably Bundrick or even Townsend. Pete Townsend, he had a lot of cool synthesizer sounds, and nobody else was using synth sounds in the 70s and 80s like Pete Townsend. So I always thought the Who had a bit, they're like prog adjacent, just adjacent to progressive rock, because they have great lyrics, great melodies, and just this keyboard, these synths that go in and out, that weave in and out of the melodies. Great backing vocals. If Daltrey's singing lead, by Townsend and Entwistle on backing vocals, and just a great band. So number 9, Dangerous from It's Hard.
Yeah, you pulled another one out on me that I'll have to go back and give a listen to and see what it's all about there. Another one of those ones I kind of not all that familiar with. So I'll definitely take a listen to those, see what I
Nice.
think. And that's what this is all about. I mean, I don't claim to be the greatest Who fan that knows the catalog inside and out. I mean, I know the albums, but to know every single song, it's almost impossible.
There's a lot.
Yeah, they had a huge catalog. So yeah, so my number 9 is I actually believe I mentioned it when you talked about your number 10 there, and that was none other than the instantly recognizable "You Better You Bet." obviously off of the Face Dances album, and pretty great good song there. Definitely reaches out and grabs you right there. It's one of the Who's most recognizable songs, and it's significant because it is the last single that reached the top 20 on the Billboard Hot 100, reaching number 18. So not their last charted song, but their last top 20 hit. And it's a great song. Roger obviously sings lead on it, as he did pretty much the rest of the later albums. And it has the backing vocals from Pete and John Entwistle. And just a great pop song. It really the keyboard in there, the intro and everything. Like you said, he was ahead of his time with those synthesizers. And but the Who, they made it work perfectly, and obviously the drums stand out with Kenny Jones on there, and also the guitar playing and the bass playing, everything fits in there really nice. And this song, my number 9 Who song.
Moving on to my number 8 Who song. This was the first Who album I bought on vinyl from 1978, from the Who Are You album, Trick of the Light.
Mm.
Great song. It was written by John Entwistle, and it's a bruising rock tune, and it has a lot of swagger, and it has some great guitar playing by Pete Townsend. Just re-listening to this stuff today, all the songs on my list and some extra songs, Pete Townsend is an underrated guitar player. He might not be a Jimmy Page or a Brian May and Eric Clapton in that mold, but he's a great rhythm player, and he throws in these short leads that are great and catchy, and his guitar playing is always hooky. You remember it. The guitar hooks, and also, of course, Entwistle's bass, they just add a lot of hooks and melody, just earworms that you remember these songs by. And it's just a good angry rocker, Trick of the Light, from side 2 of Who Are You, 1978, my number 8 song.
All right. Very good. Yeah, I had a feeling that song would pop up somewhere on here. It's one of those songs that definitely got airplay off this album, along with of course the title cut, that one,
Yes.
but Sister Disco was another one that we got some airplay up here on, and the end Trick of the Light. So yeah, all right. So that's your number 8, and I think I'm just gonna go with mine, and I'm gonna go Mobile. The deep cut that hides on Who's Next. That got a lot of airplay, but the Who have
Yes.
never performed it live. And the
Wow.
cool thing was that I got to see it live though once, but that was when Roger Daltrey came to town and played. He basically had the Who as his backing band, including Pete's brother Simon, and he sang it. So it was awesome to hear it because he sounds so similar to Pete. It's unbelievable. So it was great to see it done live. With basically with the same. The only difference I believe was the drummer was somebody else. It wasn't the main drummer from the Who, but Roger took everybody else with him for his solo shows. This was about 2016. Great show. Um, awesome because he pulled out so many songs, a lot of songs that the Who wouldn't play. You know what I'm saying? So that's what made it unique show for sure. But yeah, so that's what I got with mine. Going Mobile, a great song. I mean, Who's Next? Obviously, we have our top Who albums ranked. That's on an episode. I did it with Mr. Tom Jennings, and obviously, Who's Next? My number 1. Love that album inside and out. Just a great album and great song. So we'll see if we get more songs from that album on there. Seeing how it's my number 1 Who album, I wonder. All right, what do you got for number 7?
Number 7, I'm going to touch for the first time, go back to the earlier 70s and touch on 1973's Quadrophenia.
Mm-hmm.
It might be a little overplayed on classic rock radio, what they call classic rock radio nowadays, but I have to go for Love Rain or Me, It's just an amazing song and just a great way to end the album. It's an undeniably classic cut, just demonstrating the power and precision of the Fantastic Foursome. And I must mention, which hasn't been brought up yet, of course, the great, amazing drumming of Mr. Keith Moon. Keith Moon is an amazing drummer. He had his issues, unfortunately, and he left us far too soon. But his drumming, as Tommy Smothers once said, when the Who appeared on the Smothers Brothers show in the late 60s, the guy on the sloppy drums, well, he may have been a little sloppy, but he was a great drummer and just a powerhouse on those drums. And just the way these four guys melded together, Entwistle, Moon, Townsend, Daltrey, they just made for a perfect quartet. So amazing song lyrically, musically, just Daltrey just giving it all. Just the passion in that song. Love Rain on Me from Quadrophenia, my number 7.
Okay. Very good. And that one might pop up later on. I'll see. I'm not sure yet. We'll find out. So I'm not gonna say nothing about it yet. All right. So my number 7 is from Who's Next? And that is none other than Won't Get Fooled Again. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people might have this song even lower, but there's just so many songs I like better than this one. And that's not taking anything away from this song. It's just that there's so many other ones out there that are just a little bit better. And this one is good, obviously, because it made my number 7. It reached number 15 on the charts. And I feel, this is the song that really helped, push that album, Who's Next. This was like one of the main songs that really helped catapult it up there. And oddly enough, I'm very surprised looking back on this now. I looked and I said, how is Who's Next only triple platinum? That album, you for sure would think it would be a diamond status by now.
Well,
Almost
close to it,
everybody,
yes.
yeah, everybody I know owns a copy of it. If not that they bought the remastered and went LP, went CD. I mean, that one probably just needs to be recertified. I can almost guarantee you there's more than only 3 million copies sold by now. It's got to be up to at least 5 at the least. But I was shocked when I went back and looked at that because I was trying to see, all right, so what's their most biggest selling album out of their catalog? And when I looked back on it, yeah, I said, okay, it is Who's Next, but they're only at 3 million, only triple platinum. What?
That has to be wrong because when I worked in the record stores, the most copies we had of any Who album was always Who's Next. It was the most traded in returned record. So I think it's their biggest seller, and it's got to be way more than 3 million. I agree with you. That sounds wrong.
It's definitely got to be more than 3 million, but maybe that's why they keep getting recycled. So they're not selling the initial copy. I don't know. Maybe that's why. Yeah, but it's definitely a huge album, and the song definitely helped push that album. And now that's gonna take us to our top 6.
Number 6. Speaking of number 6, I'm traveling back to the 60s now for this one. Number 6 from the 60s, the conclusion of the phenomenal concept album, Tommy. It is the couplet of See Me, Feel Me, and We're Not Gonna Take It. It's a muscular musical conclusion to their great concept album, Tommy. And it's just a great sing-along, and it just makes you feel good. Amazing song. That's what I have to say about it. That's my number 6 today.
Yeah, that album closes in fine style with that. I had a song that I picked that was in the running here, but it just didn't make the cut. So it would be an honorable mention.
Okay.
But yeah, and that song itself too was the one I was debating between 2 songs from Tommy to put on there. One did make an honorable mention, but it wasn't one of those ones, unfortunately. So But all right, so that's your number 6. I am going back and we're going to get everybody together and we're going to join together. Number 6.
Good one.
Reach number 17. And I don't know, there's something about that song that I've always liked, and the way it so powerful. The way with Roger, just pulls it all together with his vocal on it, and I just feel that it's just one of the strongest songs in the whole catalog there. It just the way it brings it's a great unifying song. Kind of brings it's a good anthem. Let's put it that way. A good anthem. It's definitely the I would say the probably the one of the better post Quadrophenia songs. Because I the rest of the my songs, just to not to spoil it, but the rest of them are going to be a little bit older.
Okay.
So that's probably my number 6. That's joined together. That's my latest, the latest I go in the Who catalog this point forward. All right.
And Townsend plays some great guitar, some great stinging lead guitar work on that song. He just has like an edge to his guitar playing on that song. It's an angry song, like what you said, the way that Daltrey delivers the vocal, which are Pete's lyrics, and just Townsend's guitar playing. It's just angry. It's snarling. It's a really good song. I wish it was on my list. Great song, good choice. I went through the albums. I don't. They have so many B-sides and
I
songs that
know.
didn't make albums and that were on soundtracks or the comps, like we were talking about earlier. So I probably missed a couple of great songs. That's definitely one of them.
Yeah, and obviously that's one of the songs that wasn't really on an album.
And it used to get airplay. That song was on the
Tons of
radio all the
airplay.
time in the
Yeah.
in the 70s and the early 80s, and then gone, disappeared.
It's just
Shame.
amazing that that song came out way back in 1972. It sounds a little bit more modern. You know what I mean? I was kind of surprised when it came out that was like right after the Who's Next. So
Back then, he was so prolific. Townsend was such a prolific songwriter. Even though sometimes in the 70s, the Who took years to release records, but he was still a prolific songwriter. Moving on to my number 5, going back to 1978's Who Are You? A song you mentioned earlier, Sister Disco. I just love that song. Townsend's lyrics and his synth work on that song, great. The bass work of Entwistle, Moon's drums, just the way it comes together. And it has one of the great things about the Who that I haven't mentioned yet is that all the guys sing. And you have Daltrey on lead vocals, then you have Townsend coming in for a middle eight or a chorus or a verse here and there, or singing co-lead. You got Entwistle singing a song, or maybe 2 per record. So one of the great things about the Who is they have multiple vocalists. We won't talk about Moon. Keith Moon is a singer. He's much more of a drummer than a singer. But a lot of my favorite bands, a lot of great bands through history, Queen, Styx, Kansas, Fleetwood Mac, Eagles, et cetera, even I'll throw the Ramones in there too, have multiple vocalists, which always adds great flavor to the songs and the delivery of the songs. In fact, maybe that's a future episode we could do. But Sister Disco, I love it. Used to get played, and now it's wiped from existence on rock radio, unfortunately. Great tune. That is my number 5.
okay. And my number 5 is none other than a song you just mentioned a little while ago, Love Reign Over Me.
Nice.
So that's the first song I believe that we have that matches inside of our top 10 somewhere along the lines. Hard to believe that song only charted at number 76, but it was more of an AOR cut, rock radio in general. But pretty much the same thing on pace what you said. I just love the sound effects too, the way they got all the sound effects into the song to really help enhance it. makes it come along quite nicely. And then with Roger's amazing vocal on that, just what else can be said? That's just a Who at their best right there. And I still got four more songs even better than that one. So that just shows you, how highly thought of they are in this with their great, the great songwriting with Townsend and just, you know, Moon's drumming, like you said, Entwistle's solid bass playing. I mean, these guys, everybody talks about the Stones and the Beatles, but these guys did their own thing and they did it very well. And they weren't really, after the 60s ended, they didn't gear themselves to be commercial band, unlike some of these other bands, the Stones always seem to gear themselves a little bit towards singles a lot of times. The Who didn't really do that. If you look at all their 70s output, they tried to go more, be a more adult contemporary. I don't know. They just didn't focus on catchy songs. They really focused on the song itself. And instead of catchy choruses and everything, they made it more about the music.
I would say more mature than adult contemporary. Adult
Yeah.
contemporary, I would say the word mature instead of adult contempo, because that just says Michael Bolton, Barry Manilow, adult contemporary, and the Who are definitely not in that realm at all. I would say mature. Just Townsend's writing, he just became a better songwriter over the years.
Yeah. Yeah, the music itself makes, it's not, it's complex. It's a lot more complex.
Yes.
And, you go back to the earlier hits in the 60s and it was more, bubblegum kind of, it was not, he came a long way in the songwriting is basically what happened. And,
Mm-hmm.
those albums in the mid 70s, I'm not really a big fan of the later albums too much. I mean, although they all have their good songs and their positives and everything, but I just felt that the period for me where the Who really succeeded was pretty much Tommy up until about the mid 70s. That's when the era that I really, really, truly appreciate the most on the Who. And that probably is where this my top 10 is a very leading right into that whole process here.
Yes.
All
And
right.
I'm more, and I go Tommy through, I would say, Face Dances, 81, 69 to 81. That's my sweet spot for the Who.
You kind of eliminate It's Hard. That
Face
one,
Dances, I think, is a better album, but there are some great songs on It's Hard. I mentioned one before.
yep.
Moving on to my number 4, back to 1973's Quadrophenia, The Real Me.
Oh,
Totally kick-ass song. It's a powerful hard rock nugget, and each of the members of the band, all 4 of the guys, battle for dominance in this song. Who's the winner? We are the winners. The listeners are the winners, because that is a great song. It's such a great song. Even Blackie Lawless and Wasp covered it in the 80s. They did a decent version, but no one could touch the Who's version.
no.
So that is my number 4, The Real Me. Can you see the real me? Can you
Wow.
see the real me, me?
You got a Wasp reference
Sorry.
in there. Amazing. All right.
Blackie, baby.
All right. So my number 4, kind of a common song. I would say this probably falls under a lot of people's, you know, top 3, but for me it's number 4. It was a big song with the CSI franchise there. None other than Bob O'Reilly. Um, you know, yeah, this is one of those songs that you hear a lot on the radio. You still hear it a lot, quite frequently. But there's a lot of it just I don't know. Every so often, if you haven't heard a song in a while and you go back and listen, it kind of causes an awakening. Kind of makes you appreciate it even more after not really paying much attention to it for a while. And that's kind of why this song landed where it did for me because I feel it when listening back on it when I was ranking these songs, it just stood out like, wow, I'm kind of glad I didn't listen to it a lot over the last 20 years because I felt that that would have probably taken away some from me. But since I haven't heard it a lot, um, going back and listening to it again really made me appreciate it that much more, if that makes any sense.
It does.
So that's where I came at number four with it. There's no way it was going to touch the three songs above it, but it was enough just to sneak past Love Reign Over Me. So surprisingly, but I was surprised too because I thought this song I thought it would end up either on my honorable mentions or barely scraping the top 10, but it ended up going a lot higher, and it's well deserved. There's no doubt. I can't dispute it. It's a great song. A great song is a great song, and that's where we stand with it right now, and that's why it's my number four.
One of my favorite things about that song is just Pete's power chords on the guitar. Bam, bam, bam. And if you ever watch those old videos from the 70s, just the way he's doing the windmill on the strings and the way it comes in and with Entwistle's bass underneath it and Moon's drums, yeah, you can't beat that song. It's a classic Who song. It's overplayed, but there's no denying it's a phenomenal song. So I can't argue with you for putting that so high. Great tune. Moving on, my number three. You mentioned it earlier. Pure and Easy.
Wow,
How was this song not on Who's Next? It's such an amazing song. I think it's one of Townsend's best written songs from The Who. He also has great stuff in his solo career, but that's another show for another time. This is a glorious song. I cannot believe it was not on Who's Next. Amazing song. My number three, Pure and Easy.
That's cool. That's two songs we agree on now in our top 10. You probably were shocked when I put it on there, huh? You didn't expect me to have it in there, did you?
Correct.
Yeah, you know what? And probably 10 years ago, it probably wouldn't have been. But for some reason, I've really grown fonder of the song as time has gone on. You just appreciate it. Like you said, when it's tough when it was never getting any airplay and not really on a regular release. And, it had to be on like one of those compilation albums, which is nice though. But, I'm glad that like I said, the Who did a great job. You said they got the meaty, bouncy album there.
Yeah,
It's got
meaty, beady,
alternate.
big and bouncy.
Yeah, I remember that when I was growing up. I never had it though, believe it or not. I never had that album, but obviously when as soon as I got a chance, once I found this Odds and Sods, I had to get that, and that definitely just love it. All right, so are you ready, folks? Top three.
Yes.
My number three. Yes. None other than the classic Getting in Tune off of Who's Next. Just a outstanding song. I can listen to this song 100 times in a row and not be sick of it. Just love the vocals, love the music, instrumentation. This is one of those songs that our radio station still touches every now and then, not a lot, which is good. You don't see it wearing out, but they do play it here and there. I don't know how it is over by you, but it's definitely a song that I always have enjoyed off of Who's Next, and just it's one of those songs that you get. Sometimes you just get that great feeling when you hear it, especially at a great moment in time, because it's just a tremendous song. One of Pete's best lyrics there in my book, for sure.
Number 18 on my list. And I wrote down, holy cow, this used to get airplay on New York City FM rock radio. Where did it disappear to? It's exactly what I wrote down.
Man.
So it's a great song. I agree with you. Number two, going back to the great Quadrophenia once again. The
Wow.
Punk and the Godfather.
Ooh.
What an amazing song. Each band member shines here. Entwistle's thunderous bass playing. Moon's drumming all over the kit, all over the universe. and the shared vocal prowess of Townsend and Daltrey. Punk and the Godfather, amazing song. Love it to death. Number 2 from The Who.
Definitely one of the standouts of that album, no doubt about it. Um, when you put that album on, that's the one you don't skip, you know. There might be a few that I would skip on that album, but definitely not that one. So good solid choice. I'm not sure where it would fall on mine if I had to do like the whole catalog, but I would say probably within my top 30 is probably where it would lie for sure, which is really good actually, because there's so many great songs this band has, and
Yes.
it's just tough when it gets time to rank them. But my number two was no, I didn't need no thought about it. I knew right away as soon as we were doing this, my top three songs, and then I built around there. I knew what my top three were, and obviously number two is from Who's Next. Kind of a trend here. And it's the number 34 smash, Behind Blue Eyes. Just you start hearing that the chords to this one start playing, and you just fall in love with this song. This is just one of the greatest Who songs, without a doubt in my mind. Performance is just awesome, and when you see it live too, it just great song. These guys still, last time I saw them, 2019, man, they still pull it off and still do a great job on this song, even as they've gotten older and through time. This is just one of those songs that I think will always be with us. This is one of those songs that no matter what happens with radio or whatever, you're still going to always hear it, see it. It's just that great of a song. Behind Blue Eyes, my number two.
And the reason I think it gets a lot of airplay, it's because it's a shorter song. A lot of the Who songs, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, and that's a 3 minute something second song probably. So I think that's the
Hmm.
reason it gets a lot of airplay. It's brevity. Besides
Yeah,
being a great song, of course.
yeah,
Coming in.
it's
Oh,
catchy. It's catchy too. It's one of those songs where you don't get bored. They just grabs you in, and then a couple minutes long there, and it's done. you know,
yes.
just great.
And we
Uh,
won't mention Fred Durst. Why'd you mention Fred Durst? Don't. At any rate, coming in at number 1 on my favorite Who songs list, I'm going back to your favorite Who album from 1971, Who's Next? My favorite Who song, The Song Is Over. This song is simply stunning, a stellar song, and best of all, it has not been run into the ground by radio. So that is my number 1 Who song. It's melodic, it's uplifting, it's sad, it's emotional, cathartic, just an amazing song, phenomenal song. The Song Is Over, my number 1.
all right, and that's exactly what mine is. So Tom Jennings, we did it. We actually picked the same number one song out of 50 million songs of the Who. Who would have thought these two guys would have the same number one song?
I didn't think we
Unbelievable.
would.
Well, when I kept telling you about we're we're gonna be keeping this theme here with Who's Next, of course I was gonna close it out with Who's Next. There's no doubt in my mind. Um, yeah. So what a song! Song is over. 6 minutes 14 seconds of pure beauty. And the thing that I like the best about it is the way the vocals are. You got Pete singing the verses, Roger doing the chorus, and it all comes together. Just amazing, amazing song. And you know, like you said, I mean, this is the Who at its best. If there's one song you wanted
Mhm.
to, if somebody says, "Oh, who are the Who?" This is the song you'd want to play them, because once they hear this song, they'll be hooked on the Who forever. No doubt about it. This is one of those songs that nobody would ever get sick of because, like you said, who plays it anymore? And sadly enough, as it
Right.
is, and I mean, they don't even play it live. I just wish they would. Um, it's just a great, even if they didn't do it like as the way it was recorded, even to do like an acoustic type version would be something to see, you know. And but anyhow, this is just the greatest Who song that Pete ever wrote. No doubt about it. My number one, your number one. And yeah, it's never been topped in my book since then.
I agree with everything you said.
All right. So now that we've got our number one out of the bag here, our number 1 through 10, we got a couple honorable mentions that we'll mention here, and we'll start off with you. You can do all yours right in a row here.
Okay, my number 15 from Face Dances, Another Tricky Day.
Mhm.
Underrated song that used to get a lot of airplay, and now it's gone, at least in New York City. Banished from rock radio. Love the lyrics from Townsend on Another Tricky Day. Coming in at number 14, I'm going to go to 1982 again. It's Hard. Cry If You Want. I love the drums, that militaristic drum beat by Kenny Jones. And it's just that angry Who song. And the way Daltrey is just spitting out Townsend's lyrics with venom. I don't even know how he keeps up with the lyrics. It's so fast paced. It's almost like he's rapping, but he's not rapping. He's just giving it his all and just going for it. Cry If You Want. Really great hard rock song from The Who, 1982. Check it out if you don't know it. Going back an album, number 13, Face Dances. I am picking The Quiet One, a great John Entwistle song. And the song just rocks. And Entwistle wrote it. It's a ballsy tune about himself that he says, what the heck are the lyrics? They flew out of my head. It's not important. And I just want to add bonus points for Pete Townsend's particularly pointed guitar playing on this gem. So Townsend has some nice slashing guitar on The Quiet One from Face Dances. Number 12 from 1978, Who Are You? Had Enough. And if anyone remembers WKRP in Cincinnati and Johnny Fever playing this song, although on the DVDs they've edited that all out, unfortunately, but you could probably catch it in reruns on TV. Had Enough. Great song. And just that, I have memory burn when Johnny Fever put on the record and you saw it was the old MCA label, that rainbow label with the sky on it. And they played Had Enough on TV, and I was in my glory as a little kid. I just love that. Number 11, going back to another John Entwistle song, a song called You from the Face Dances album. And this is another unheralded John Entwistle song that used to get played on the radio when the world was young, when the world was so very young, to quote Kansas, and just to bring them out of nowhere. That's my number 11. So there are some great, pardon me, really hard rock Who gems from the late 70s and early 80s on those records, and you should definitely seek them out.
Okay, yeah, well, you really went to town on those albums there that really don't get a lot of love from the Who catalog, unfortunately.
And that's when I came into the Who. Well, I discovered radio in 77, as I've said before, on so many videos we've done together.
Mm-hmm.
So 78 and then 81, 82, I was there listening and buying those records. So I think they're good records, although I know the critics and the fans might not love them. I have a fondness for that era.
Yep, that's where you came in into it. So that's what helped you become a fan, those albums. That's what it
Yep.
all boils down to. All right, so my honorable mentions, we'll go through them real quick. Number 20, reached number, this one, my 15th, reached number 25 back in 1968. So it's dating itself, but this is one of those songs that, I don't know, for some reason, I didn't really appreciate the song as much back in the day when I first started really getting into this rock radio. So that was about the time at the Who were calling it quits. That's when I first started really listening into heavily into rock radio. So at that point, and they didn't play any of those albums really on the radio except for maybe Athena off of It's Hard, and then you would hear You Better You Bet and Eminence Front, but you didn't
That
really
was a big
hear,
one.
yeah, but other than that, you didn't hear anything that had just come out within the last few albums, on our rock radio. They would definitely dig into the deeper stuff. And this is where this song would come in, Magic Bus. Just one of those songs that, you know, got my attention. I really enjoy it. And over the years, I never really heard it that much. And then all of a sudden now it's like going back and listening to it again. It's like, wow, what a great song. This is definitely one of those ones that I knew was going to be like an honorable mention, just because it can't compete with my top 10, but it's definitely starting to inch its way towards it. And so my number 14 was coming from Quadrophenia, and that's none other than 515, which was a single that never charted. But that's another great song, another strong vocal performance by Mr. Roger Daltrey.
Yes.
And my number 13 is going to be from Tommy. So I do have one Tommy song reaching it here, and it's none other than the Deaf, Dumb, and Blind Kid, Pinball Wizard. So that's like the first song I ever really heard by the Who on the radio was Pinball Wizard, and so it has a specialness because that's one of the first songs that I really helped get me into the band to begin with, and there's a lot of other good songs on Tommy, don't get me wrong, but maybe that this one's just a little bit better than the other ones because of that fact, perhaps. Now, this number 12 is actually one I'm not sure if you're familiar with, but it's called Time is Passing, which is odds and sods. I guess it was something that was
Oh,
left over from Lifehouse, aborted Lifehouse project again, which is, man, I would have loved to see what that Lifehouse project would have turned out to be had it actually been gone through the whole process. But Time is Passing, another song that fits right in that whole era of when they were recording that whole batch of songs in the 71, 72 era there. Just some great stuff. And Time is Passing is definitely as time has passed, it's gotten a lot better moving up my list there. And so my final honorable mention for number 11, it reached number 44 on the charts. Hard to believe this song came out in 1969. For me, I always thought it was later, but they call him the Seeker. So the Seeker for my number 11, uh, definitely. I was surprised when I found out that this song was recorded way back in '69. So that was even before Who's Next, but after Tommy. These guys were just recording all the time. It seems like back in those days. To have a song laying around like this that they didn't really have any room on an album for. It's just crazy. And yeah, definitely a great song that really never gets its just due in my estimation because of that fact. But yeah, you still hear it every now and then. And not a lot, but it definitely worth seeking out if you enjoy great Who songs.
that's a Tom joke.
Yes.
The Seeker is a great song. That's a good undervalued song. You pulled a nice one out there. I like that choice. Really good choice.
All
So
right.
back in the day, rock radio here used to play like 2 to 5 songs every time the Who released an album or a big name band released an album. And that doesn't happen anymore. And that's how I fell in love with these artists and these albums, just by rock radio and different stations playing different cuts. I remember I heard So This Is Love by Van Halen from the Fair Warning album. WLIR played that before they went new wave, probably like a year later. That would have been 1981. And I think by 1982, they were into their whole new wave Flock of Seagulls type scene. Not that
Mm.
there's anything wrong with Flock of Seagulls. I love their first 3 albums personally. But radio used to play deeper tracks, and different stations would play some different songs that weren't played on other stations. And that's how I fell in love with a band like The Who. So I just wanted to add that.
No, that's unique, actually, because obviously being in a big city market there, where you probably had like, I mean, how many main rock stations did you actually have around there that you could
I would
pick up?
say there were two in the late 70s and early 80s, but then from Long Island, pardon me, I would get WLIR on a good day if I put my antenna back in the days of antennas,
Mm.
if I hung it a certain way. And from I think it was Jersey, I would get WDHA, which was 105.1 if memory serves. And then in the early 80s, there was a new station called the Apple, WAPP. So I would say before PLJ went top 40 in 1983, we had three good stations. And then if the weather was good and it was clear, I could get five good stations.
Yeah, that was something we really didn't have the benefit here too much because we only really had the one classic rock station. We had a couple other stations that called themselves classic, but they only lasted for short periods of time because they kept changing the format from one thing to another. So they weren't really around long, but 97 Rock has definitely been the standard station in Buffalo over the years, even though even they folded up from 85 to 89 and then they came back. But they've been back and rocking ever since.
At least
That
they came back. That's a good thing.
that being their slogan, back and rocking when they came back. So but and that, excuse me.
That's
I'll,
okay.
I'll edit this part out. Anyhow. All right, so yeah, so we had the benefit of having 97 Rock, and then we can get station from St. Catharines, Ontario, 97.7 hits FM, and then on a good day you can get Toronto Q107 in Toronto, but for the most part, 97 Rock's been the only station that usually comes in clear no matter what, and was always the one that would geared towards the classic rock. Nowadays it's 97 Rock's still the classic rock, but the other stations focus on newer rock now. So it's like totally a whole different ball game now compared to what it used to be. I miss rock radio back the old school rock days. It was just a great experience compared to music and radio today. It's like, that's why I'm so glad we have all this great catalog of all these great artists because imagine if we didn't have all this stuff, music, you'd be forced to listen to just whatever they feed you nowadays.
Ugh.
Yeah. Yeah, we would not like that whatsoever. So, and that's why we do these shows too. A lot of people might not be totally familiar with fully, about the whole Who history, and you go, we're pulling out songs off all these albums that didn't really get the love that some of their albums did, and I think
Right.
it really helps people open up their eyes to a better, to let them know, hey, if you're not too familiar with this band, here's a couple songs we want you to listen to. Take a listen and see how you like them. And there's a good chance that they're going to really like these songs and enjoy this band even more. Try to keep these legacy bands alive here because a lot of them, who probably won't be touring again, according to Daltrey. He said something about recently in one of the interviews that he probably there's just not a money to be made in it. If they go on the road, they will lose money or something. I read something to that effect. And so it's a shame, a band that still can go out there and perform at a really high level considering their at this stage of their career being how old they are. Yet, due to the touring costs and everything, they just feel that they can't really go out and go out without losing money. I mean, obviously you got to be able to make money to survive. They're not going to go out to lose money. I can't say that I blame them in that respect, but maybe they need to scale down the show and just do like go back to the old acoustic style because in the last tour they did a small segment where it was just like an acoustic segment for about 4 or 5 songs. Maybe they just need to take Roger and Pete out on the road together and just do a whole set acoustic and see how that turns out. That would be interesting because the cost would come way down with production. All you need is a guitar, a couple microphones, an amplifier, and you don't need a whole production. You don't need a whole chorus or orchestra like they had on the last tour. You don't need it. You're the Who. Your music speaks for itself. You don't really need to enhance the music any. You guys do that with your performance. you know,
Well,
and
they
then,
are also they're getting up there in age. I
well,
think
right.
Daltrey might be 79 or 80, and
Well,
Townsend's not far behind. So
no, but if they could still do it, they should get to it before it becomes too late. You know what I mean?
we'll have to see what happens.
Yep. We'll see. Maybe they watch this video and take our word on it. We'll see. All right, there. That's good. Before we go, go ahead and fill fill everybody in on your whole channel and what else you've been up to recently.
Yes, I have a thank you, Joey. I have a channel called Cretin Classics, Cretin, Cretin Classics on YouTube, just like Joseph. And I just put up recently, about a month ago, I put up a Zebra video ranking the studio albums of Zebra with a lot of Zebra news contained in that video. And Zebra, the band, actually commented on my video. And to my knowledge, I have the only Zebra album ranking video out there. So it's doing very well. So come and check out my channel. I've ranked some other bands. I have a lot more content coming in the next few months. Joey and I are working on a show together. We're probably going to do in April that we were discussing earlier. So Joey will be on my channel and we'll be doing a lot more work together in the future. So check me out and thank you for letting me have that little plug, Joey.
All right, you're welcome. Not a problem at all. Good to have you on board. And then leave us some comments. We want to, the main thing is we want to see that people are actually watching this and, you know, giving us some feedback here, good or bad, we could take it. We're big boys.
Yep.
You
And
know,
what are
eh,
your favorite Who songs? Why don't you list your 10 or 15 down below?
and I feel with this catalog too, it's such a big, vast catalog that there's a lot of songs we didn't even get to mention.
Oh
Obviously,
yeah, a
I
lot
mean,
of the
there's a
60s stuff.
lot of good stuff. I mean, we didn't even mention and get this, their biggest charting single. Do you know what it is off the top of your head?
No, I do not.
It's "I Can See for Miles."
That's on my
which
list.
which I never would have thought it would have been the highest charting song of the Who's catalog, but it is.
That's my number 17.
Uh-huh. See, almost.
Love that song.
But
Great song.
that just goes to show you, and then you know, Substitutes, another one that we didn't really get. We could have done a whole episode. It would have took like 6 hours to really dig into the Who, the nice meaty catalog of the Who. You know what I
Meaty,
mean?
beady, big, and bouncy.
Exactly. It's a big catalog and it's meaty and it's bouncy. But it just goes to show you though that that what an impact these guys made in music, and that's one thing you can't deny. You love them or hate them, this band is definitely one of the greatest rock bands ever, and there's no denying that. No matter what format they're in now, no matter who's in the band, it's usually just been about the songs of Pete Townsend and his lyrics, the musicianship of whoever's in the band playing, and just a great rock band, one of the greatest rock and roll bands in the world. And maybe that's an episode down the road, ranking the top 10 rock bands ever. That would
Oh
be
my.
an undertaking, but
Yeah.
that's another day and another dollar. All right. All right, guys. Take care.
Okay, thanks for having